Alright guys, here's your MULN update. I'm going to try to make this quick. Just go over the raw data, show you guys how it works, show you guys what you should be looking at, show you why I believe that it's like the squeeze is definitely inbound. There's no question about it. Anyone that thinks there's not a squeeze on MULN is mentally handicapped, unfortunately. Hopefully there's not too many people out there. Like, the social medias are one thing, but like, you got to understand, the squeeze started on MULN before the social medias got wind of it. Like, it went from 52 cents to $2 in 2 days, and then that's when everyone started buying the dip when it fell back down to $1. And now we can just track the dilution and see that the dip is not being stopped buying. Like, they keep buying the dip, and the dilution proves it. You can't find this on any other stock out there. It's only MULN. MULN's owned 95% by retail right now, and that number's only growing until they send it to a high enough price that retail's willing to sell, which they always do. So, back on March 14th, we were updated that, so February 11th, they told us there's 20 million shares in the public float. March 14th, we were updated that there's 188 million outstanding shares, with 82% of it being the free float, which is 150 million shares. So we know 150 million shares retail, 188 million outstanding. Now, with all the updates, there's been like a little, like, CEO picks up 100,000 shares. This other guy picks up 1 million shares, but a very, very small portion of insider adding of shares. So if we go to March 28th, that's when they announced that the outstanding shares increased to 240 million. But you'll notice they didn't tell us how big the free float is. We have not got any update of the free float since they told us 82% at the 150 million shares. But then it went up another, so it went from 188 million outstanding to 239 outstanding. That's roughly 52 million shares that was added to the to the outstanding shares, which I believe all went to the float. Then, if we look at this was a filing from today. They're now saying they have 284 million outstanding shares. So there's 239 million there. We got 84 million here. So that's an increase of roughly 44 million shares. We can say 45 million shares. Yeah, and that's been, and this was, if you see, it says as of March 31st, 2022. So if we go back to the calendar, so we have March 14th is when we were updated about the 150 million free float. Then March 28th, we were told that it was 240 million free float. And then March 31st, so from the 28th, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st, we know that the float grew another 45 million shares in just these 4 days. Okay? So, what does all that mean? Well, what that means is so Friday, April 1st, to the 4th through the 8th, to the 11th through the 14th, we have not gotten dilution. So 10 days of dilution that they still haven't updated. Okay? Now, one thing that's interesting is on the middle of March filing, where they said they were going to dilute 253 million shares, including the 200 million warrants that exercise at $8.84 a share. Well, they reposted that today. And so what I'm interested in is, I look at this. So I know that with their shares, they have 580 million that they can ever dilute total. And that's counting insider shares, that's counting everything. So if we subtract the 284 million we know are already part of the float, so 284 million which are outstanding, and a large portion of that, at least 90%, is the float. That gives us 296 left. Now, if you minus the 252 or 253 that they just had the filing for the dilution, that leaves 43 million shares that are left to be diluted. So basically, if you look at that 253 number that they filed about today, there's 53 million of those shares that they can dilute before the 884, and then the other, it's like 190 million at the 884. So if we add, let's just say 63 million plus the 43 million, we get 106 million shares total that they can dilute before we go see $10 quick, fast, and in a hurry. Now, what this doesn't include is the last 10 trading days, so April 1st all the way to today, of dilution. Now, if you looked at the 4 days from March 28th to March 31st, we did 45 million shares of dilution. I mean, it's hard to imagine we are not like right at that 106 million, especially after the dip today. So when it dips down to $1.80, and you see that for the last 5 consecutive updates of weeks, not counting the last 2 weeks, we've seen more dilution, and all of its retail buying power. And so basically, if you extrapolate out the last 11 days compared to the 4 days, we're at $3. We bought the 45 million shares, and we went from 240 million outstanding to 284 million outstanding. I mean, it suggests that they're almost out of this 106 million shares. Whether it's tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or even the next fucking Monday, I don't really care. It's going to happen. You just got to be patient. And then they're going to have the 190 million shares final that they get from the warrants to stop the squeeze eventually. So basically, they're going to let the price run. They're going to dilute a little bit of shares, see if they can't get people to sell. If people don't sell, they'll let it run again, dilute some more shares. And what they're looking to do is make it to where MULN is just like AMC and GME. We own 60% of the shares, but we don't own all the shares. And they don't care if we own 60% of the shares. What they can't have is us owning 95% of the shares and buying more every week. That's what they can't have, because eventually we own every single share. If we were to own every single share, the price would just continually rise until we decide to sell. And they can't allow that. So to me, it looks like the squeeze is coming any freaking day now. If you can't understand this math for the dilution, then like you just need to buy and hold, and you need to wait until they give all the dilution numbers. Now here's what bothers me, is that they put up a posting saying back on March 14th saying we got 253 million shares that we're going to make an offering for. They didn't sell any of those shares because they just made that offering. They reposted that offering today. But we still saw the float grow from 240 million to 284 million. So where did those 44 million shares come from? Well, there was another 100 million authorized shares that they could have diluted the whole time, but they never made an offering for it. And so you tell me, people, as a CEO, do you think they should have been required to announce that they were diluting shares different from the previous offering, and in order for them to offer these shares? But instead, what they did is they took shares that they feel like they're not obligated to tell you when they're going to dilute, and they cut it in line of their last offering and said, we're going to dilute these first. Like, that's bullshit, people. If you don't understand, like, I don't know if it's illegal. No one really knows the laws. The laws are interpretable. Like, a jury decides what's illegal and what's not legal. Like, so you can't just determine and say, oh, that's illegal. Like, very few things are just blatantly illegal. But what I'm getting at is this is the most corrupt short squeeze we've ever witnessed. And it's okay, because retail's buying the dip. If you can't see that retail's buying the dip, I can't help you, because I keep telling you, wait for more news of dilution. Wait for more news of dilution. They keep postponing it. They give you partial news of dilution. Partial news of dilution. And then again today, partial news of dilution. Like, they give us a filing they filed on Friday, but they skip out the last 10 days before that of dilution. Why didn't they add those numbers into the report that they filed on Friday? I'll let everyone speculate for themselves why they're doing that. All I know is that they are about to run out of these shares, and we are about to squeeze. And when it does squeeze, it's going much higher than $10 a share. It's going much higher than $10 a share, and it's not going to take more than a week. Zero chance this takes more than a week, people. All you got to do is look at every time they announce dilution, see how much it means that retail's actually buying over the course of every single day, every single week. And you can see that, like, right now with these 106 million in the last 10 trading days, it's suggesting that, like, they should already be out of shares. And so maybe retail, like, doesn't have as much money as they did, and now they've only been able to buy 90 million shares, but after these last 16 million shares are sold, all they got left is the 190 million that they get from the warrants. But regardless, you got nothing to worry about. It's smooth sailing from here. If you guys can't see that, I can't help you. I just wish people would be more positive about it. Like, I keep telling you, more dilution is going to be announced, and every other Monday. I mean, besides this one, they waited 3 weeks, but it's like every Monday we get more dilution news, and eventually they're going to tell you they got no more dilution. And they're not going to tell you that until after the stock price goes up, obviously. But at the same time the stock price goes way, way, way up, the next filing you see, it's going to show how much hundreds of millions of dollars of cash they have on hand. It's going to show you how much insiders actually cashed out. And it's going to show you how much retail actually owned of the outstanding shares. And then we're going to get a final update after the squeeze that shows that half of retail sold out. And the other half is trying to diamond hand for some type of MOAS or something. But that just never happens. Could we hit $30, $40, $50? I totally think we could. It all depends on how confident retail is and what they bought and what they own. And yeah, they got to let the price go up until retail no longer owns 80%, 90% of the company. They can't allow retail to buy up a company. That's the one rule that they never failed to stop from happening. And so the only way they can stop it is to pay you off, and the payoff is coming. I like seeing big down days. Like, I don't care if it's moving up or down, like big movement, news of dilution. I mean, that was 4 days that they announced 45 million shares dilution from March 28th to March 31st. That's so much retail buying power. But if you break that out over 4 days, that's only 10 million shares retail's buying on average a day. So if it's 40 million in volume, if it's 50 million in volume, if it's 100 million shares in volume, retail's only buying 10 million shares a day. Like, it's all they can afford. Retail comes in slow, but we eventually get there. All right, guys, good luck. MULN all the way. It's the only play.